Hey everyone, it's Dr. Tracy. Good, happy morning to you from beautiful California. So I had quite a morning for various reasons. I have spent the past 6 weeks in a hyperbaric chamber, 2 hours a day. And I think that something happened to me and it caught up with me, and I literally slept for 12 hours last night. I feel so awake this morning, and I had to be shaken awake because I just couldn't wake up, but it's all good. As people are logging on, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Takis. Good morning, Emily. Good morning, Janet. Good morning, Tasha. I love you too. So, welcome to the next edition of 16andMe. Can everybody hear me? Because I always get confused with my headsets, which is my microphone and which is not. Testing. I guess I could do something as simple as, mark it, and that way I won't fight with it every day. But no, I have to make life a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. Anybody guilty of that? How's that for a good morning, 16? We are here at 16andMe for the next edition. I'm Dr. Tracy. So for those of you who are logging on for the first time and you're asking that question, what is 16, or who exactly is 16? Well, let me explain it to you like this. 16 is, I believe that inside of every woman, there's at least 17 of us, 17 different personas. And for the most part, we all know each other. We all get along fabulously, except for who? Those of you who watch this every week, except for 16. So who is 16? 16 is that persona within us that has like an ego up to here, fear and issues out to here, insecurities out to here. In the world of psychology, they call it the pathological critic. In the world of Buddhism, they call it Maya. In the world of some spiritual circles, they might call it your shadow feminine. Well, around here in Tracyland, I call her 16. And the reason that she's 16 is because, as I said, I think that there's at least 17 personas inside of us. And where we get in trouble, at least where I got in trouble, was when I realized one day I got this vision, and it looked like the last table. And around the table, there were 17 seats, and 16 was taking up like 15 of them. And I realized that that's what happens to us, that when we have that inner critic voice, it can literally, like the picture that I'm getting in my mind's eye is how many of you this winter have been outside, and all of a sudden you look and this huge dark cloud just takes over the entire sky, and it's just one cloud, and it just blocks out any sunshine, any rays of sunshine. Well, that's what 16 can do if we're not careful. That inner voice, which is actually a representation of a trauma that we've experienced, can take over everything. So the goal is not to get rid of 16, because 1 + 6 is 7, and 7 is a miracle number that we need in our life. And that those of us who have gone through trauma, that is just a layer as to who we are. There are cases where you can be like, oh gosh, I don't even remember that happened to me. But for the most part, if you're somewhat human, elements of the traumas that we experience, especially if we experience them at a younger layer, they just kind of come ingrained in us. And it's through those traumas that this critical voice, this 16 voice, this Maya, this shadow feminine, whatever you want to call it, again, around here we call it 16, is born. How many of you can relate to that? Let me see a show of hands. And here's the problem, is that if we don't recognize that critical voice inside of us is actually the root of a trauma, that we begin to think that harsh critical voice is us. And then we begin to self-sabotage from within. To a lot of you, let me just say, you don't even need to sign up for an abusive person in life, because you've got the wounded you inside of you kicking the crap out of you every day of the week. So why, double up, right? Just saying, from personal experience. Okay, who's out there? Hello, Demetrius. Hello, Mrs. Curvey Washington. It's nice to see you. Hello, Joe. And again, hello, Tasha. So, and hello, Alexandra. You know what, Alexandra? Sorry for everyone that you're going to hear this personal note. I tried to send you the beautiful red crown that you won, and I sent you a text about the address problem that I have. So if you could get that over to me, and I want to get it to you before your before your baby comes. So congratulations on that. Sorry, everyone. Multitasking here. So today I want to talk to you about a side of 16 that is super important to know, because one of the things that I like to say about 16 is that 16, if 16 were a real, like a physical being, what 16 does is 16 walks into our emotional closet and takes a look around and dresses herself for the day. And she can come on as, she can put on her judge's uniform. She can put on her terrified uniform. She can put on her doubter uniform. I mean, there's so many different uniforms that 16 can put on, costumes, I should say, that 16 can put on. And then she puts on those robes and she begins to just torture us from within. So today I want to talk about the wardrobe selection that 16 puts on, which is called the never enougher. How many of you can relate to that? That it's that internal voice that launches inside of you that tells you, you know what? You're not enough. No matter what you do, no matter how well you do it, the comparer comes up, the person, the trauma from your past arises, and with it is an attached. It is attached within a message that basically says, you know what? You're not enough. No matter what you do, you're not enough. And this is a classic trauma wound that comes along with people who have abandonment trauma. That people who were raised with narcissism. This is a classic example of you're just not enough. You just never measure up. Or on the flip side of that is you just don't deserve it. I mean, why in the hell would you deserve anything nice? It can stem from messages of how dare you try to take up space in life. And so any type of traumas that leave messages, and let me just go a little bit deeper into that. Whenever we experience, there are these things in life that are called life-defining moments. And life-defining moments are those moments when we experience something and there is a residual message that is attached to it. So if you experience something good, like a promotion or a success, that the message that's attached to trying is, this stuff works out. Man, you put a little skin in the game and you get a reward. This is a good payoff in life. There's also something that are called negative life-defining moments. And these are when we experience something and the message that is left after we experience this life-defining moment leaves some sort of a trauma. And so if we're walking around with any of these negative messages, hello, Events by Bliss LB, it's nice to see you. That what happens is that we grab onto these messages, 16 grabs onto these messages and begins chanting from within. So for those of you who have this message inside of your emotional system, this internal voice, it's not a schizophrenic voice, guys, it's an internal thought process voice that fires and it just says, you are not enough. Here's something that I have learned from myself and that I want to share with you that is so important to know. That as a child, we had no choice. And like, I literally get teared up every time I think of this thought, because as a child, we have no way to protect ourselves from traumatizing wrong messages. We don't even understand what programming is. And as you will hear me say time after time after time on this show, that the job of a child is to be a child. But when a child is exposed to trauma, a child is literally helpless to protect themselves, let alone heal themselves from any type of a wrong programming or a wrong message that takes place. Let me know if you guys are relating to this. As a child, we are powerless to reprogram ourselves or to choose the type of programming that we want to live under. But as an adult, we do possess the power to reprogram our thoughts. And any thoughts that we need and we have the right to reprogram are the thoughts that just don't feel good or just don't best serve us when they're living inside of us. Any of this making sense? So for those of you who have this trauma wound, and I had to walk through this trauma wound myself with this, you are just not enough. You are just not enough. That's the bottom line. Is that the one thing that I've realized is that nobody has the right to give us a scorecard in life. Nobody has that power, that position to hand us a scorecard and to tell us whether or not we're enough. And if you're carrying that scorecard inside of you or surrounding yourself with people that carry that scorecard with you, then that's just your 16 talking. Because here's a memo from Self-Love Normaland. From the day that you were conceived, from the day when that sperm and that egg combined and became the first cell of you, you are enough. You are perfect at that very moment. And the only type of flaws that you might carry in your life right now are flaws of either you didn't know, because we don't know what we don't know, so all you have to do is get in the know, or because of the wrong programming, that somebody decided to put a scorecard on our life from a broken set of rules that they're probably carrying. So there comes a point in life when only you can choose whether or not you're enough. And if you're with people who like to give you scorecards, here's a little Reclaiming Me tool that you can use. It's a tool that I use here in Tracyland. And it's a tool that I basically say, don't put your scorecard on me. Don't give me a scorecard. I don't align with the scorecard. I don't need your scorecard. I have my own scorecard. And trust me, those of us who come from trauma, we give ourselves the worst score of all. We don't need outside peanut gallery to be scoring us on our enoughness. Any of this making sense? I hope so. Okay, so what I want to do right now is I want to transition, and I'm going to invite in my guest from for this week, and you all may recognize her from the Sparkle On show. She is a Globe alumni. She's an awesome woman. She also has another show, and I forget the name of it right now, but she can share that with you. But we're going to be talking about and meeting a real life 16 called the Not Enougher. So let's see. Let me try to get you on here, and she's going to be joining us. Please welcome, as soon as she logs on, the beautiful Emily Bonera. And I've known Em for many years. There she is. Oh, you're in the car. You got to really get going somewhere, huh?
Oh, work.
Oh, okay. All right. So everyone, I introduce you to the beautiful Emily. And Emily, I know that time is of the essence of you. So introduce us really quickly to your 16.
Oh, my 16. She brings lots of baggage. Let me tell you. She's, you know what it is? That my 16 loves the phrase, what makes you think? What makes you think you're good enough? What makes you think you can do that? What makes you think you couldn't do it before? What makes you think? She is king of the castle with that. And it's really funny. You had said something earlier that sparked like a huge aha moment for me. And it was like, you know, you're talking about your past traumas and everything. And I think where my never enougher came into full power is definitely when I was a child. I lived in a home where my mom and dad got divorced when I was 9. And my mom was the type of mom that was, oh my gosh, that would be so great on your sister, but not you. Or, oh my gosh, that would be so great for her, but not you. Or I was a size 8, 6-pack of abs, but I was the fat one. So I had the scorecard. I had, you'll never be enough. I had, you know, it took me up until age 40 to finally be like, I've always dreamed of being a singer, because my whole life I had my whole family being like, you're never going to do that. You need to shut your mouth. So, you know, it's like those icky negative things in our past that you don't realize how much weight they carry now in our today. And every time I go through something, they just re-trigger and they go, she goes right into this. See, told you. See, told you.
I told you you're not enough. I told you you're not enough. And like, does she have certain gestures that she does?
Oh, like just
she's a face. She's a face deformer.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my face needs conviction.
like you are just so not enough that it causes her face to distort. One of those.
Yeah. Or she'll either get real like or she'll get so revved up that I'll just like break down and cry. Like she'll just get me so up there that all my other people in there just are like, no. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm getting it. I told you. See, I'm making her cry. you know?
And you know what? That's an important point, because what people don't realize is, and I was just about to ask you, what happens to you? Like after you go under that campaign, what are you left feeling like?
Oh my gosh. I'm a crier. It takes, you know what, and I have to explain it this way. Like, not only emotionally do I just break down and cry, but my internal system, I'm more connected now with my internal system than I think. Of course, I have a lawnmower right here. I'm more connected with my internal system, I think, more than anything. And what happens is once she gets revved up and I come off of that, like her high, you know, I just start crying and I start crying. And then for like a day or two, when she gets really revved up, I have stomach aches. I'll get headaches. I'll get brain fuzz. And she really attacks my physical inner being, in which a lot of people don't even see. You know, I just feel it.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing, is we suffer alone when we're in it. You know, we have this ability to put on an okay outside face because we're not crazy. We're not dealing with a form of mental illness. We are completely sane. We're just being traumatized from within. But I want to point out something really important to you and also to our listeners, and then we're going to talk about how to diffuse that voice. Is one of the reasons why 16 and the not enougher and the scorekeeper is so powerful is because she is not coming after the 40-year-old woman. She's coming after the defenseless child. And that's what happens. And that's why, and it can be such a crazy disconnect if you don't understand that connection, that it's not me, this person that's running a company that's, you know, managing 200 people, that's doing this. That's not the person coming under attack, because it's living inside on a trauma wound that happened as a child. So the first thing that you have to do is when that not enougher shows up, is, and you've heard me say this many times, you got to create that space, because it's only by creating that space. And that's why I call her 16, because it's not me. It's this thing called 16, and create that space where, especially with the not enougher or that inner attack happens, that you say, you thought stop. It's a condition called thought stopping. And you say, hold on, knock it off. Stop picking on her. Stop picking on that 9-year-old child. Stop picking on that little girl who was just trying to do the best that she could. Stop picking on her. And you'll remember a few years back when I ran my conference, be nice to her. She's been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And as a 40-year-old woman, or as anybody who battles 16, let me say, the only person that can come to that wounded child who's having the crap kicked out of her is the adult you. This is the only superhero in the world, because nobody knows our trauma wounds except us. Nobody lived through that moment by moment by moment. And if it's repeated moment by repeated moment by repeated moment, you're talking about CPTSD, not just PTSD, right? Big difference. So when you hear the message, you're not enough, I want to tell you, Em, that at 40 years old, you're actually a superhero. That you actually possess the power to be that superhero woman and rescue that child from the not enougher voice. So let me ask you this. If you were in a situation where that 9-year-old kid's getting plummeted by 16, you're not enough, and here's your scorecard and what makes you think, and you're a mom of 2, and now you understand you're a superpower, you're a superwoman, what would you do to stop that voice now, if that were the real facts?
Man, first off, you're making me cry because the moment you get my kids involved, mm-hmm. It's different when you, it is different when you put it in that your baby girls. That touched a nerve, because I would just pull them out of that. I would rescue them. My children, I would look at them and I just realized, like, I have to look at myself the same way to be like, oh my gosh, you are so more than enough. And we live in such a world that wants to keep us in that never enough space. And so I would have to tell my children, just like I would tell her, that, I'm a spiritual person. So God made you beautiful and fearfully beautiful, like amazing. And there's a purpose and a reason for all of us in our life. And that there's so much for each of us to give, that we're more than enough, is what I would tell my children. You are more than enough, because you have a plan and a purpose. That I think the hardest thing for me as an adult is I like to control things, so I like to see the future and that never enough. I mean, she even came up this morning. She is like, oh, you're going to talk about me today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. But I would have to say, like, Dr. Tracy, like, honestly, like that really was powerful and hit a nerve, because I had a spiritual coach that used to tell me all the time, when you feel like the devil's attacking your life, she goes, I physically say in my home, not today, devil. I rebuke you in my home. I rebuke you in my life and my finances and my health and my business. And she would like scream it out loud in her home. And I was like, that's interesting. And there's been times where I have felt like this cloud, this ick coming over my home. And I'll be like, not today, devil. I rebuke you. And I'll like scream it in my house at him. But I've never done it to my 16. I have never done it to her to say enough.
What I tell my 16 when she's acting up is I go, not today, princess. Sit down, take your one seat at the table. Not today, princess. I have a life to live. And there's something that I want to bring home, because I know that you've got to get to your next appointment.
I know, I'm sorry.
So for all of you who have a not enougher, you got to create that space where you're going to put the silence, you're going to put the brakes on that chanting. Number one, you need to adopt a rule that says nobody gets to put a scorecard on me. You know what? This is not a soccer game of life. There is no score. And the next time, you put those boundaries up, you create that space, you talk back to it. Not today, princess. This is no longer your scorecard. I'm taking the scorecard back. And I'm going to be the one who gets to create a judgment on my life. And one of the rules of creating a self-judgment, especially for those of you who are dreamers and you want something so big in your life, is in the rule book, it states that you have the right to not know everything. And when we don't know everything, that means that we have the right to fail, to learn, to do a do-over, to get it better the next time, and to become better at whatever we're doing. There is no such thing as somebody who immediately was good. It comes from practice. It comes from failure. It comes from getting up. But the only time we don't get up is when 16 continues to kick us in the head. And so that's when we need to say, not today, princess, because the new rule in the scorecard book, the new rule is that I have the right to get it wrong. Guess what? I have the right not to be perfect. I have the right to practice and be horrible, and practice and get better, and practice and be good, and then practice and be great. I have that right to go on a growth spurt, because you know what this is called? This is called being human. And that's all we are at the end of the day, is human.
Yeah, that's so good. I so appreciate you, because that really does help, like, totally just realize that I have the power to not today, princess, and take that back. And that's really empowering. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate that, because it's like, you don't want to walk around with 16 empowering you. You want, obviously, like you said, we need her, but we need to keep her. I remember you and I had a family discussion with my whole family dynamics. And she was like, you had said you can love your parents and keep them at a distance at the same time, like healthy boundaries, healthy love, because you have to take the reins of that. And so I do appreciate everything this morning. It was so good. And I'm definitely going to use that line. Not today, princess.
Not today, princess. No scorecard today, princess. And to other people in our life, we need to fire everybody who thinks that they have the right to show up with a scorecard in our life, because it's nobody's job, because we are enough just as we are. All right, Em, I know that it's 10 o'clock and you got to run, and I appreciate you sharing
thank
today.
You guys so
much. Everyone, you can catch up with Em on Sparkle on Wednesdays? Thursdays. And your other IGTV show is when?
Christ Crowns and Coffee is on Saturday mornings, and we're starting a new series in April.
Very good. And in the meantime, if any of you would like to be a guest on 16 and Me, feel free to PM me, and we'll get you on here and learn more about your 16. And next week, when you come back on, we will learn another piece of wardrobe that 16 picks up and tries to sabotage our life. But you know what that means? Not today, princess. All right. Lots of love to all of you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next Friday on 16 and Me. I'm Dr. Tracy.